Most call me Bronzy. Students call me Proctor. Some call me Rage Knight. The Sovereign calls me traitor. My son calls me shithead. My wife called me Fitchner. But the Golds call me Aries. All right. Thank you for listening to Sons of Aries, a Red Rising podcast. Tonight, I am your host. Well, today, whenever the hell you're listening to this, I am your host, Cullen. And with me, as always, for the last couple of times, is Chris and Charles, both fully recovered from their bout of plague, even though they both have 2 vector points constantly surrounding them, living with them, screwing up their lawnmower lines in their grass. Gentlemen, how are we? I know we've all recovered from the breakup of the great relationship of literature, which was Darrow and Roke. Unfortunately, those two clearly have struggled to make it work. We are covering tonight chapter 46, Brotherhood. How are you both?
Doing well, Cullen. Doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to be healthy. You know, I'd also like to call out the 2 vector points you mentioned also ruined the bank account as well.
Good
beyond
point.
all those other things. So
good point.
And that'll never stop. It may be ruined now, but it can get worse.
Chuck says as one tear rolls down his cheek.
Yes.
Chapter 46, Brotherhood. Here be dragons and spoilers for all books and all things in the Red Rising realm. And not only are we going to be talking about the canonical 6 books currently published, but tonight we will dive a little bit into the Red Rising Sons of Aries Omnibus, the comic book that came out, because some of it is pertinent to the conversation within this chapter. So if you haven't read the books, go and read them. I don't know why you're listening. If you haven't read the comic books, don't leave. I will make sure to do the spoiler call, but I do suggest you go and grab that. The omnibus just came out. I want to say like a couple months ago, maybe in November or October. I don't remember. But I was on like a 4-month wait to get it. So check that out. If you don't want to be spoiled, I'll make sure I call it out before we get there. Also, here be swearing and all sorts of adult shit. As we all know, having read the books, again, if you haven't read it, get the hell out of here. All sorts of adult shit happens in these books. They talk about adult stuff. There's war, there's violence, there's swearing, there's very little, but there is some, adult material, if you will. There is stuff that is rough. If we think it's rough enough or bad enough, we'll give it a content warning. But other than that, we're just going to plow forward. As always, Pierce Brown created this amazing sandbox. We are just playing in it, so we thank him. All the characters, situations, everything is his imagination. My howl of appreciation tonight is for the person that was also mentioned in Chris's, but Janelle Rhiannon.
There you go.
Nailed it. She was fantastic. She's super supportive, both on social media and watching on Chuck's got the book, the first one in the series, Song of Sacrifice. It's her Homeric Chronicles. She also has the Greek Mythology Retold podcast. Check that out wherever you get your podcasts. She takes a lot more time and effort to produce that podcast. She writes a script. She does a ton of research. She edits. She's a much more put together podcaster than we are. She's also a cool grandma. As we talked in the previous episode, I don't know about you gentlemen, but if I can't even imagine a world in which my grandmother, either one of them, would, like Chris said in that episode, like my grandmothers wouldn't even know what a podcast was, let alone be a podcaster. So Janelle Rhiannon, the author of the Song of Sacrifice series, the Homeric Chronicles series, the Song of Sacrifice is the first book, and the author and producer and editor and host of the Greek Mythology Retold podcast. Check her out on social and wherever you get your podcasts. As always, Book and Box Co. with the new logo. We truly appreciate the artwork that he puts out into the world. I'm wearing my Arcos shirt. Chuck has had his Sons of Aries Tumblr. You can get a ton of cool stuff on the Book and Box Co. Etsy. So check that out. And that is the top. My Goodman, are you Prime?
I am Prime, Cullen.
I am
Charles?
Prime, and I love that quote from the beginning that you chose for this chapter. The golds made me, Aries. Punches. Love it.
Does. It does indeed. And I think it's, well, we'll get there. We'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get there, let's do the recap of the chapter. Darrow gets to see his daddies. Dancer and our favorite helldiver reconnect and discuss the betrayals of Harmony, the origins of bloddydamn, and their brotherhood father-son relationship. Dancer gives his thoughts on Sevro and on the fact a gold is the match that lit the red powder keg of rebellion. Mickey, weirdo that he is, comes in weeping and kissing all up on Darrow. He has been forced to come to the realization that he is indeed a monster, but he is a monster that wants to be better. And Darrow, big-hearted bastard that he is, says that that's good enough to ride in his gang any day. Mickey continues to be one of the oddest characters in the entire series. Finally, Fitchner enters, and this time we don't get snarky, lazy Proctor Mars. We don't get nasty, acerbic Rage Knight. We get the real deal, Ares Au Barca, the story of how he came to the realization that the rising needed to happen, his plans within plans, and his deep emotional understanding of the cost of all this is on full display. And we also see his willingness to keep paying that cost at any cost. But one thing that he cannot contend with and doesn't seem to fully understand is the ways of Darrow's heart. So that's the recap right off the top, gentlemen. How did we feel about this chapter? First time you read it, second time you read it, where did it land? Because for me, on the second time, this chapter felt really, I loved the Dancer stuff. I love the Fitchner stuff. I think the Mickey stuff is weird and kind of unnecessary. But as a whole, I think this is one of the strong chapters towards the end of the novel, simply because we get such a fascinating backstory on Fitchner. What do you guys think?
Yes, I agree 100%. We needed to know the reasoning behind Ares and behind Fitchner and what the hell created the goblin. But I like the part with Mickey though, because I've had in my own notes where him finally again realizing he was a monster. He thought he was this cool violet creating these awesome goddess like creatures down in the depths of Mars, but really he was just a twisted, demented soul maiming people. And for him to finally like come to grips and realize that he is a piece of shit and that he wants to do better. And Darrow realizes for all of Mickey's faults, Darrow loves Mickey because Mickey's always loved him. So I felt like it fit in the chapter, but this is one of the few pivotal chapters, I think, in this book for me.
I would agree, and I think on the reread, I felt that a lot more. I think on the first read, it was interesting insight, but you're just burning to the next chapter, and you're not really pausing to reflect on it. So on the reread, you realize how pivotal, essential backstory it is. I also actually enjoyed the Mickey part. It felt like Frodo reference in back-to-back episodes, but it feels like a very Gollum to Smeagol turn. You know, like Gollum uses Frodo for his own gains, and Smeagol worships and just is obsessed with Frodo or Darrow in this case. So I enjoyed it. I thought it brought some insight into what a depraved little weird man he is. Also, just don't want to lose it. If we could get Darrow daddies trending on TikTok or Instagram or anything, that would be great.
Yes, I like that. Darrow's daddies. Yeah, I think you're both right. I just and it's funny because back in whatever chapter we talked about it in the beginning of this book, I was the one defending Mickey because I was the one saying like, oh, well, they're all monsters, every one of them. So he's no more or less. for me, it just feels like, and this is maybe just a um, more of a recognition that the book is coming to an end, is that it feels like it's kind of shoehorned in as, well, we need to get the conversation, the redemption of this character in. We need to get the conversation with this character in. And so going from Darrow's, uh, but you know what? As I'm saying it, I'm realizing what the underlying theme is. These are the three men that created the Reaper. These are the
That
three,
started it.
which I get. It's just for whatever reason, Mickey feels less than Dancer and Fitchner, even though maybe he's more important
most,
than
right?
either
Yeah.
one of them. But
Yeah.
for some reason, and I think maybe it's the sniveling aspect of his character where he's just
Yeah.
weeping and kissing and
Groveling, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
groveling.
Yeah.
It is. You're right. It's the Smeagolness of it all that kind of grates me a little bit.
Yeah. I think one other thing I found interesting on the reread too is really the first time you read Golden Sun, the Fitchner reveals itself is what hits the hardest, right? But moving back through, it's almost like this is more of the reveal than
Totally.
just finding out he's Aries, because you really get to sit with he's
Totally.
sharing why he's Aries.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right in terms specifically that Ares is almost a victim of his own propaganda. The first time you read through, you're just like, oh, it's a terrorist warlord who's like the guy behind this. Why he's behind it doesn't really matter because I just want to find out what happens to Darrow. And then on the reread, it's actually, this is fascinating. How do rebellions start? We have this almost fiction in our mind that they like the shot heard round the world, just some random event occurs where there's enough people in the right place at the right time to light the spark. But in reality, it's years, if not decades, of slow burn leading to that event that eventually actually gets the powder keg lit. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That on the second read, you're more invested in the reasons why.
Yeah, and the one quote that I generally never really liked Dancer. I always had questions about it, and I feel like he got freaked out when Darrow became what he became because of Mickey. But when Dancer says, "A man has the right to tell his own story. Strip a man of what he loves, and what's left, just hate, just anger." And I don't know, that kind of through the second reread, it's like, all right, the story, Fitchner's backstory hits even harder for me.
Yes,
Did I steal one of your sentences?
you did. I was just looking at it because I think that to me is the most important quote that Dancer has in this.
Yeah.
And it's I like how he finishes that. So at the end of that, he says, "Who are we? Who the bloody damn are we to question him?" And it's something I think not enough characters say to themselves, and in our day-to-day lives, we don't do that enough. Where we recognize that there's context and backstory behind every motivation that everybody has, and maybe if we thought about that more often, we'd be able to have a little bit more empathy and understanding. Um,
Yeah. We
particularly
wish.
in the world today, empathy
Yeah.
and understanding are
Are
seemingly
lost.
evaporating.
Yeah. More and more.
But so let's start at the beginning with my quotes, because in this chapter I have a fair amount, so I want to work through
Okay.
them as we go. Dancer kicks off, my bloody damn beautiful little bastard of a boy. God, I love the alliteration of that sentence. You look so bloody grand. There are no words. I'm sorry I couldn't reach you. Sorry I let Harmony use you like that. There are so many things, Darrow. Which again kind of piggybacks on what I was just saying. I love that he starts right off with apologies. That to me is good leadership. It's good mentorship. It's also just being a good person, that there's no attempt to explain at first or reason with him. It's just straight out, I'm sorry.
Taking
Maybe,
that ownership.
again, maybe we should do more of that.
Maybe Darrow should have done more of that with the poet.
Yes.
Rogan.
Well.
That probably would have helped.
No amount of sorries would have fixed it.
At the end of this, Darrow says, "How's my family? Do you know?" And Dancer gives us some really, I think, good insight because it paints what's happening in the world itself. He says, "Still in the mines. I know, but that's the safest place for them with this war abound. No one wants to blow up Mars's industry. Register. There's also some foreshadowing in there. I don't know if you guys are placing that, but it is spoiler. It's there's the Jackal has the opportunity later on to blow up some stuff. He chooses not to blow up Mars for a number of reasons, but one of them is very much those mines. So they are the treasure. They are what everybody's playing for. And it's just a good idea to remind the reader that those mines are more important than almost everything else.
It's a helium-3.
It's also a tie back to how we're really introduced to this world, how Darrow was introduced to this world by Darrow, right? Also a reminder of you didn't know any of this was going on when you were in the mines until I showed you what was happening. So his family's still kind of living their same miserable red lives, but they don't necessarily even understand there's a threat above or anything going on, right?
That's a great read, and it allows Dancer to keep that role of I am still dispensing wisdom and knowledge to you, even though you're a gold, even though you've gone through the training and the intelligence enhancement and all this stuff. I still do know my business, and I know it well enough to know what's safest for your family. I like that. Then we get a really interesting little bit of history, which I'm going to expand on. It's a fine word, rolls off the tongue. He's talking about bloddydamn. Been with us since the first ancestors, you know. The first golds, the ones with normal eyes and gold uniforms, took most of the early recruits from the poor bastards from the Irish Isles after the radiation from London turned the Isles into a wasteland. The golds took the highly skilled migratory workforce and recruited them to be the first pioneers. Their slang just stuck around, jumbled up a bit. History's fascinating, isn't she? Two things I love about that. First off, the fact that we are on page 389, chapter 46, all of a sudden giving an explanation behind a very commonly used word in the series and giving it a grounding in a history that we have no knowledge or basis of knowledge for, allows this to be this wonderful little bit of world building and giving us the story behind the downfall of Earth and the conquering, the fact that golds at one point were just normal guys in gold uniforms. All of that is just very cleverly layered in without any callback, any grounding. There's nothing for it. It's just a little bit of world building here that I really, really thought was smartly done. And there's a note here where Dancer says, history's fascinating, isn't it? And I don't know if you guys picked this up, but in Iron Gold, spoiler, when Dancer is reunited with Darrow after his return from Mercury, they're talking while they're gardening with his mom, and Dancer says something about an artifact or whatever and the museum that the society gave him. So we actually get the groundwork for Dancer being this very big history nerd, and it pays off in 2 books when we find out that Dancer is essentially the president of some museum that the society has given to him, or not the society, the Republic.
No, the Republic, yeah.
And it's just I love that it's this one line that then pays off again in one line that you definitely could miss easily. I don't know if you guys picked up on that or not.
No, not at all.
I just am picturing you reading the line "history is fascinating," and you're just like, "Yeah, you're right, Dancer. You're so right."
Yeah, I love you.
Well, to further Chris's damning with faint praise there, the history of the word bloody goes back to ancient English. And in the 1700s, the aristocratic young wealthy would basically, they were like a gang. They would cause havoc. They had nothing to do and all the money in the world. There was really no purpose in a lot of their lives. They were just waiting to inherit, and they would go about and wreak havoc, and they were called bloods. And so if you were a low class who got drunk as one of these wealthy inheritors, you were called bloody drunk. And then through the late 1700s into the 1800s, the term becomes more and more embraced by the low classes. And then it becomes kind of ubiquitous, where you have like everybody uses the term. And then the Victorians come in, and the Victorians are famously the most prissy, uptight group of people since the Puritans. They never talk about sex. They don't swear. They don't joke. They don't have fun. They're just boring. And bloody takes on this really negative connotation where only the coal miners and soldiers and the prostitutes of the world would ever use that term.
The riffraff.
Exactly. The riffraff of the world. And then I think in like the early 1900s, like 1912, 1916 or 18, something like that. I don't remember. The play Pygmalion comes out, and it causes this incredible uproar because at one point early on in the play, a character says something to the effect of walk bloody fast, or I'm not going to bloody walk, or whatever. And everybody in the Victorian, at this point, late Victorian, early Edwardian era, it's lit the world on fire because some famous playwright is using the term of the low class. And then from there, it's re-embraced by everybody, and all of the empire at this point is using the term bloody. So India's embraced it. Australia, you can find bloody anywhere that the British flag formerly flew. So much like Dancer, I think that's fascinating, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
I was going to say, this chronologically doesn't work at all, but it feels like you just went from describing Peaky Blinders into Downton Abbey as kind of
basically
the journey I was going on there.
Yes, that's, yeah. All right. Fuck you guys.
Peaky fucking Blinders.
All right. So then we go on, and the line that Chuck brought up earlier, I think there's an important thing right before that line where Darrow says to Dancer, "Doesn't bother you that he's a gold?" And Darrow says, "It doesn't bother him that we're reds. Ares would die for the cause, Darrow. Shit, he started it. You know why he did?" And then there's that moment where he chooses not to tell another man's story.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know why, but the theme here really, to me, and maybe it's the influence of the outside world or whatever, but again, I feel like that notion of, well, it doesn't bother him that we're reds, is something that we should maybe filter into the world that we live in today. Of, well, it doesn't bother me, I'm the way I am. It doesn't bother them that I'm this way. It shouldn't bother me that they're that way. I'm not on a soapbox, but if I had a tiny little Irish Spring soapbox, I'd be standing on it and say, there's some lessons in this chapter that we should hold on to and remember. Then Chuck's line, which is beautiful, and I think really, really something that is powerful. It's just a powerful line. And Chuck, why did that jump out to you as much as it did?
It's the simplicity of it. Again, like how Pierce always writes in these simple one sentence but moving quotes. But it is truly, you want to get it from the horse's mouth. It's why this is all started. Why is there an uprising? What is behind all of this? And it's like you have to get it from the man himself. It's almost, to get it second, third hand, or whatever else, it almost doesn't do it justice. Like, you have to go to the source, and every man has the right, every man or woman, whatever their life story is, they have the right to tell it how they felt it, how they experienced it and what drove it. And in this case is love. And the fact that love was taken away from Ares, from Fitchner, and all he had left, just like Darrow, was hate and anger. So that's kind of why it just came full circle for me.
I would also say with that quote, and you talked about Dancer imparting wisdom, there is an element of Darrow, you are the one that needs to tell your story. And it's almost like there's this acknowledgement of knowing how much he must be struggling with this that I think only
Mm.
Dancer understands and is alluding to, that Darrow is obviously wrecked with this at this point, and it's like
Yeah.
you kind of saying, hey, you do need to tell your own story at some point
Mm.
too.
I love both of those. I also I think it also implies that too often we don't get to tell our own stories. They're
Yeah.
told by others. And that the mix of all three of what we've just hit on, I think, is what makes that one line so good and layered. It almost stands out of the chapter as its own like thing.
Mm.
And another part of that little paragraph, or this little paragraph by Dancer, is he says, "Sad is yours, sad is mine." We don't know what Dancer's story is. We eventually
Mhm.
find out, but at this point, we don't know. And picking up on that line, now knowing what that story is, of the three, I almost think that Dancer's story is the saddest. It's maybe not the most painful. I think the story of Fitchner and the story of Darrow are incredibly painful, but there's sympathy for them.
Mhm.
They have their people fighting for them. Darrow or Dancer's story never ends. There's this traumatic moment, and then for the rest of his life, he's hiding from his
Mm.
own people, the people he's fighting to free, the people he's fighting for. He's still not able to be the person he is to them. And I think in a way that is the saddest of the three stories. I don't know if you
Mm.
guys think the same or different or whatever.
I would also say Darrow and Fitchner both have very clear moments and inflection points to their
Mhm.
sadness, and they carry it with them, where, to your point, it's a lifelong battle that Dancer is fighting, which is, I would say, tenfold sadder,
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. He
Yeah,
doesn't.
I'd have to definitely agree, but I thought Fitchner at least gives Darrow the nod at the end of the chapter where he's like, he didn't witness it. He wasn't there for it. He still feels the pain and knows what happened to his wife. But Darrow, he was there. He was trying to switch places, and he had to pull down her feet,
Yeah. I
her
mean, technically,
ankles.
Darrow kills his wife.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we get to the nuts and bolts of it, he's the one who actually kills her. I
Yeah.
think, but that's the end of that act.
Mm.
Traumatic as it is, lifelong
Yeah.
as it is, scarring as it is, Dancer never gets an ending to
Sure.
what his traumatic, event was. It's just always with him.
Is
Which
that why he becomes a crotchety asshole later on?
I will
Spoilers?
defend Dancer to the end, and I'm going to get a
Yeah.
lot of heat in the next series because I don't see it as crotchety.
Mm.
He is speaking for his constituents
Yeah.
as a municipal government member.
Yeah.
I can tell you,
Here we go.
it is
You even
very
waving your
hard.
finger while you're saying it.
It is very hard
Yeah.
to speak for the people, especially when they're being dumb, when they're
Yeah.
doing shit that is stupid. They're doing it
Yeah.
against their own best, future, and yet you still have to go to bat for them because they're your
Mhm.
constituents. However, off the Dancer train, on to
Yeah.
Mickey. This is where I think Mickey shines in this. And it's not I tried to warn you or whatever. She was right. I am wicked. I hurt the girls and boys. I sold them even when I loved them. Of course she was right. Why would you come? Why would you do anything for wicked little Mickey? The reason I don't like it is because it's so self-pitying and pity
Hmm.
party, but it's also tragic in that he's I did hurt them even when I loved them. That's a weird mix of shit that the Golds have put on him. You guys both seem to be Mickey Stan, so tell me I'm off
Back up.
base here.
Yeah.
Darrow then says, weird as you are, wicked as you are, I know you want to be better. You want to live for more. We all do. And there's not a place they could take one of my friends that I would ever abandon them. I think that's important in terms of the Mickey relationship. I also think that that's an important last line there. There's a little bit of foreshadowing and a full circle kind of comment there, because as true as that is for Darrow, it also proves to be quite true for not just his friends, but the people that follow him. Particularly at the beginning of the next book, we find complete strangers, new characters going to a place that they shouldn't be by all accounts, to go for a friend that they've not yet met.
They don't even know if it was alive to go even further. Yeah. So it's all on a hunch for somebody they have not met or don't even know if it's a confirmed alive person.
And okay, so spoiler. So we're talking about Holiday and Trig and the rescue mission in Morningstar, which, by the way, I don't know if I told you guys, I went on Fade to Obsidian to talk about the death of Trig. So if you're a fan of Fade to Obsidian, or if you're not and you never heard them, go listen to Fade to Obsidian. They are covering all the deaths of Red Rising. I was on a couple weeks ago to talk about Lorne. They're now moving on to Morningstar, and the first one in that series is Trig. And then eventually Chuck and I will be on to talk about spoiler, Fa and Atlas. But what I think is interesting about that too is not only are they going after a guy they've never met, who they don't know is alive, but it also essentially is the end of their lives. Not in the physical term, but they are burning their identities because they are deep cover. And once they come out, everybody in their life, their all their belongings, everything is gone. I'm sure they have backup plans or whatever, but it's all gone. They're no longer in the shadows. They're out in the open. So it takes an immense amount of guts to do that kind of thing for, like Chuck pointed out, somebody you don't even know is alive.
Yeah. But at least as far as Trig's case, I know we're going off on a little tangent. Like he was like down in the dumps, mental state was shit. And like, this was almost like a last Hail Mary. If he could do this, maybe he could redeem his life. So, I mean, I get that as like a motivating factor for him. But to your point, like, yeah, they had all their cards were on the table. This is all they had. And if it was a success, everything's drastically going to be different. So they're swinging for the fences.
Which is the way to do it. If you're in Trig and Holiday's spot, that's the way to go. There's a line here that Darrow, it's his inner monologue. He says, and I do believe he wants to be a man he thinks I would respect, just like I want to be a man EO and Mustang would respect. And that's the good sort of love. I actually think that that's a great message. It's not the I want to be a better man. It's not the I want to change so that they see me as a certain kind of thing. The kind of love where you want your partner, whoever it may be, to just respect you, is I think a powerful sort of love. I hope that we all obtain that at some point, or attain
one
that.
day.
One day.
Would I don't want to say this is a counterpoint on that thoughtful take, but it also, with Mickey specifically, it's almost Darrow wants to love too unconditionally, similar to what we've gone through with Tactus, right? It's a very similar, like, you can absolutely forgive Mickey, but to kind of share that love with that person is I don't want to say questionable, but I get it as kind of an ethos, but it's also like, we can't just forget all the terrible dark shit this guy has done, right? So it feels a similar vein to Tactus for me.
I think that's totally fair. I think it's a good counterpoint. I think maybe what I think maybe what Darrow's angling at is that he leaves the door open for redemption, for you to become that version of the person that you want to be, that he will then respect. But you're right. Like, just because you do a few good things and you are on the up and up doesn't negate the fact that he was carving, 15-year-old pinks into butterflies for the sake of some weirdo gold who wanted to fuck a butterfly. That's still a pretty terrible, on the level of a Tactus type thing.
Yeah.
So
right.
I think that's totally fair.
Just classic. Love the sentiment, don't love the placement of the sentiment for me.
We get
Fair.
one of two fantastic Sevro seconds here.
Yes.
Hey, look, it's all pricks for once. Let's tell sexist jokes.
Yes.
Which
I was wondering if you'd bring it up.
Since this is a podcast of all pricks, I guess we should tell the best sexist joke we know if we want to get canceled and not have a podcast anymore.
I'm going to say it's a great alternate intro for us instead of Welcome to the Sons of Aries podcast.
I think that's great. We should definitely, that should be our trailer for the podcast.
Wow, jeez.
Right after
we
that.
did so well.
Yeah. We got almost the way, almost to the end of the second book.
Yeah.
But so that's our intro to Aries, Sevro kind of introducing his dad. And then we get the quote that I opened with. I'm going to read it again because I think it's that good. Most call me Bronzy. Students call me Proctor. Some call me Rage Knight. The Sovereign calls me traitor. My son calls me shithead. My wife called me Fitchner, but the Golds made me Aries. It just kind of walks us through. Again, I said it in the intro and I mean it, like, up until this point, Fitchner is either the snarky, lazy, kind of fuck around Proctor, or he is this sarcastic, acerbic, nasty, brutal Rage Knight. And now we actually see, wait, he's none of that. He's a different thing entirely. And he's a father, a husband, and he's Aries. Him saying it's always been me, boyo, is definitely him taking that title and owning that in that moment. But to what we've kind of hit on a few times, we don't really know why. And this is the first instance. We'll find out more, but this is the first real instance where, he's more, which I think is important. I don't know if you guys had anything else to expand on that quote.
I would say and more on your point of we've only seen him as really the snarky Proctor, because even the kind of brutal Rage Knight is more hearsay, not necessarily like us experiencing that firsthand as a reader. And it makes so much sense as a deflection to kind of deal with what he's been going through. And really just also we talk about acting with Darrow and the Jackal. Like we learn Fitchner is just as good as they are, if not better, to kind of use that snarky side to kind of hide who he really is.
One of the things that in reading the Sons of Aries, the comic book series, which, by the way, I'd listened to the graphic audio of like a few months ago, maybe back in September, November or whatever. And it was good. It was fine. It was just because I had no frame of reference to a lot of the characters. It was kind of hard to follow. All the situations were new with the audiobooks. I had read the physical book first. So listening to it audio, I kind of had a lot more grounding. Listening to a comic book for the first time was it felt very uneven. Whereas reading the actual physical comic book, you get Fitchner is doing a really interesting thing and Darrow goes the opposite. Darrow's always good to the low colors. He's polite. He's decent to them. Fitchner almost is the supreme gold, where he treats them like shit. In fact, he's brutal at times to what Chris was just saying, where he acts like a real, the truest version of a gold to throw off the scent that he's anything but a nasty operator.
The only thing I wanted to add just from the quote is Fitchner always proves that he's got like more tricks up his sleeve. Like we thought he was this has-been shitty proctor who gave up. He's kind of pudgy, just pops these little bubble gums, and then you realize no, he became the Rage Knight, and he's saving the Sovereign's ass in the split second, and is capable of holding his own and taking out other, you know, I forget who we fought, but like holds his own and can kill others very easily. And then now you come to find out, like, oh no, he's actually a decent human being, a good father who, you know, as best as he could raise the goblin into adulthood, and he can start a whole rebellion to upend this shitty society. So he's always got some tricks up his sleeves.
Yeah, I think throughout the earlier portions of this book in particular, we do find that he's like, in order to become the Rage Knight, he dueled a bunch of people. He definitely won it through force of arms, and then also I believe it's him and Cassius who take down Nero. And right after we find out that Nero is actually
pretty good,
quite the competent blade. So yeah, in the background, he is very much this chameleon-like character. But it is that line, I think, where we start to see him for who he is. There's 3 one-offs. They're not quite factoids, but in the next paragraph, we get a little bit of the story of Fitchner and what he was doing. He mentions being on a terraforming company on Triton, which is the largest moon of Uranus or Neptune. I think it's Neptune. Neptune.
That would make sense with the.
Yep. Yes. Triton. Yeah. Obviously. But so I don't know. This is a good. Chuck has decided to never do his trivia questions again. So here's my trivia question, because I don't remember. Was that where Sevro was? Was he on Triton when Mustang called him back?
Yes.
Okay. So Fitchner
and the Howlers,
was on Triton when he met Sevro's mom. He worked for a terraforming company on Triton. Then Sevro goes back to Triton and is there with the Howlers.
I know how. So
I'm wondering,
maybe set that up.
Yeah, is that like his way of keeping his son safe off on Triton, or is Sevro getting? Is that where he gets in touch with Dancer and the Rising? Because I know that there's a holocan he watches on the way. I don't remember.
Well, Dancer meets with him on the flight back after Mustang calls him back, and then Dancer meets in the flesh with him somehow on the same shuttle.
I think maybe
I forgot what else I was going to say.
I'm just conflating things because I saw, now having the backstory and actually seeing it in depth, the Triton connection seems like, oh, well, he must have become,
And I mean, from what Sevro was basically hated at the end of the Institute, he killed Priam, like he was shunned nonstop. And it's probably the best thing Fitchner could do with what little power he had.
True.
As the only proctor not, in the pocket of Nero, to kind of, hey, send my son off and keep him away from the bullshit and keep him alive.
Also, as we know, it takes a long time to get from Triton back to where we're going. So it could.
Yeah, that may have been a discussion.
There is actually some light to be shed on that from the comic books. Where there's a character on Mars who has to get to Triton and in the comic book, and I don't know, there seems to be, and I don't know about this, so maybe I'm making this up, but there seems to be not regret, but some feelings like the comic books were not as complete or as accurate or something as the Pierce Brown and Lit Escalates community wanted it to be. Some kind of friction there. So I don't know if the comic books are canon or not or whatever, but there's a sequence where a character is like, finds out that Fitchner's on Triton. This character, Ovardon, his like enemy, is on Mars and is able to get to Triton in 3.5 hours or 4.5 hours or whatever. So there's some kind of faster than light travel mechanism in play in the
Epstein
comic
drive.
books, something to that effect that they definitely do not reference in the books. And I think the books are much smarter for not doing that.
Yeah, that would, I feel like, not track at all based on just Sevro's experience coming back and literally needing to be hailed seems like far in advance by Mustang, and then also Dancer intercepting and meeting. So yeah, that feels squishy
And even
at best.
later, later in the series too, and there's a lot of traveling all over, and there's no fast traveling in the later books either. So
in fact, it's a major part of the strategy, and the unfolding of events can only happen because of the time allotted to it. So again, I'm not sure if that's canon. There's also this particular Gold is like a super wealthy, high guy, so maybe he's got some kind of special, but they don't address it, so it seems like it's just natural travel. I don't know. It didn't work for me.
Could be a Gulfstream situation where, like, Mars to Triton.
Yeah. They hit
some
something.
space winds. It's super fast, but way back you're
it's much longer. It could be there. I actually have another problem, and we'll get to it in a moment. But there was.
I have to add. I was just double checking though, because Sevro actually got sent to Pluto with the Howlers. And then he got requested back by Mustang, and on the way back, Dancer met with him, and they stopped at Triton. So maybe he actually stopped.
That makes total sense, because Triton, we find out in the comic books, is like the base for some of the Ares satellite operations. So
because that's the beginning hub for Ares. Creating the Sons of Ares all happened on Triton, and probably to help sell it to Sevro, Dancer like brought him to his home planet where his parents basically fell in love, and so they stopped in Triton for a bit before he continued on to Luna.
That tracks. How did you check that so fast? You have one eye.
I've been over here just punching some keys in, listening while you guys chat.
Oh, do we want to? That's true podcasting right there. Trust but verify.
Do we want a fun Triton fact?
Please bring it in.
It is the only moon in the solar system with a retrograde orbit. So,
actually, that is interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's a good trivia.
Could tie into why it's so accessible too. It's moving in a different direction. We're gonna have to do a Triton supercut of all
deep dive. Yeah. All the Triton
we'll just post the Wikipedia page. Right after that, there's reference to the contract. Fitchner's contract was leased by a silver. Did we have any bead on the silver in discussion here?
Was they quick?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's who it is, but because he's like the only silver that is mentioned at this point, right? So I don't know if did you guys pick up on that?
I was gonna say I don't think he's been mentioned yet, right?
Okay,
no,
I had no idea. I just didn't know if on.
I feel like even silvers in general have been pretty sparse.
They're kind of like whites at this point, where you have no real concept of what they do, or coppers, really. Although, no, copper is the mine management and stuff like that.
Yeah, in the first book, but so far in Golden Sun, I don't think we've heard of a single copper until Fitchner talks about how much he hates them, because that's why it all. There was some number issue and why Bryn was killed, and they hate coppers.
Well, yeah, we get there in a moment. And then the third little factoid is the Lovelock engine. Now, this is interesting to me. This is a like a seed being planted, which totally makes me think it's a chicken or the egg, right? So was the Lovelock engine created so that Fitchner's story would make sense? Or was it created like here because he had the next series in mind and then went back and created Fitchner's backstory more fleshed out and put in the idea of, well, no, it would have to be the Lovelock engine here to make the Fitchner story, but then add it into the next one. But the interesting thing about the Lovelock engine, and I never thought to look this up, but there was a famous scientist philosopher who was named James Lovelock, who came up with the Gaia hypotheses. And that is the idea that the Earth functions as its own self-regulating entity, that the sentient and non-sentient structures and beings on the planet work together to regulate the planet, that every cycle of rebirth of the planet, from volcanoes to whatever, to all the stuff,
seasons and
all is the planet working on its own dial, figuring out what works best for itself, which I think is interesting because now we learn that the Lovelock engine is what they use to terraform, and it's there's actually drawings in the comic book of what it looks like, where it's this massive structure that's almost directly kind of connected to the core, not the core of the Earth, but really fucking dug in there. And it plays some kind of role in making the planet or moon livable. So I just thought that was interesting. Anything on that, Chris?
Good to go. I love it. It's very if it's interesting to you, it's interesting to us, Colin.
Yes.
All right. I hope that's true of the listener too.
The Lovelock.
So Fitchner looks up at Sevro. He says, "She was the most beautiful woman I've ever met, and she was pretty to look at too." Good line. Fitchner has some drip, as the kids say.
You just said that.
I believe it's Riz now.
Riz. I'm sorry. Fitchner has Riz.
Drip meant something different in our days.
It still does, Chuck. That is the meaning of the word. I don't care what these kids call it.
Okay. All right.
Then he goes on to say, "Not cost effective," said the coppers. "Shittiest color ever made." Chuck just referenced that. For whatever reason, Pierce Brown hates coppers.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, they're bureaucrats. So who doesn't fucking hate bureaucrats? Bureaucrats and lawyers, I think. So easily the worst group of people. I'm literally saying that the Obsidians are better than the coppers. Then we get a mention to New Thebes, which, Chris, I believe you read the end of everything, right?
Yes, I have. Yep.
Little shout out to the ancient Greek city of Thebes, destroyed by Alexander the Great, where its population of 50,000, 70,000, something like that, was either killed or displaced or sold into slavery by Alexander. And then a new city of New Thebes, an actual New Thebes, is in Egypt. It was founded in the year 2000, which I think is so bizarre that there are cities being founded. It just seems like something that's ancient, that cities are founded hundreds of years ago, not 26 years ago. I don't know. I just thought that was weird.
It's like, hey, remember that city-state that just didn't get help from anyone at all and just perished off the face of the earth? Like, let's bring that back. It's time.
Around.
It's time.
What's in the name? That actually is funny. I can't think of a worse fucking city to name yourself after. But it's outside the city of Luxor in Egypt. If anybody wants to hop on a plane and check out New Thebes, you don't have to go all the way to Mars. You can go to Egypt. Then we get into the story of Bryn and Fitchner, how one's a red, one's a gold. They fall in love. Fitchner performs a heroic act and saves her and some other low colors when the Lovelock engine explodes. In the process, he loses his arm, she loses her leg. Then they recover and recuperate together because she's given the best window seat in the hospital. And so Fitchner at one point finds that window and then meets her and they chat and they fall in love. the rest is history. However, they can't have kids. She's a red, he's a gold again. But then they go to a carver. The carver tweaks her fallopian tube so that she can conceive. Then they have a baby. There's a thing called the quality control,
Board.
the board of quality control. And they are the ones that basically make sure that the bloodlines aren't tampered with, that the colors aren't mixing, that the blood is pure. And so if anybody finds out, rogues people, exactly.
Yep.
And if they find out that Sevro exists, he'll be considered an abomination. He'll be destroyed. So Fitchner is kind of moving around, trying to figure out a way to make this all work. And 2 years later, the Board of Quality Control busted the carver for some work he did on some obsidian gladiator, and he ratted us out fast like for a reduced sentence. Sounds like something Mickey would do. It wasn't Mickey that was the carver, but that seems in line with that group. They came to our home when I was away with Sevro, found my wife, took her in for questioning. Their doctors saw her fallopian tubes had been modified so that she would be compatible to sire a gold child. Then they disposed of her. Says so right in the records, disposed. Gassed her with Ackley's 9, put her in an oven, pumped her ash into the sea. They didn't even give her a name, just a number. Not because she was a thief or a murderer or had violated any man's or woman's rights, but because she was a red who dared love a gold. My selfish love killed her. So, gentlemen, tell me what you think of that sequence there.
In what way?
What does that make you think? How do you feel about it? How do you feel for Fitchner? How do you feel for Bryn? What does that story evoke? I don't know, because I have a problem, a big problem, and I want to know if I'm off base.
I'm intrigued. I don't know. I love the story, and we get to, it always comes back to love. He loses his wife. I still don't quite understand how they make it so reds or other colors can't, reproduce, somehow twisting the fallopian tubes. I don't know. But, I
mean,
don't know.
we
I
do
still
that.
find it as
We do that with animals, with like selective breeding, genetic manipulation with like farm animals and stuff.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, something new every day. But,
so like certain breeds of horses can't breed with others. It just doesn't work. Same with cows and things like that.
Very well then. I still think it's a beautiful story, but I don't know. Yeah, I thought there'd be a lot more to it. I think the whole thing with Darrow and EO seemed like so intense, and it's like, I got it. I understood the story. Maybe it's because it's more flushed out. We're on the second book of it, but it seemed like Aries' story, it kind of fell flat for me, but I still like loved it. I just wished for more, I guess, is my gripe with it.
I'm gonna see if I can hit on your problem with it, Cullen. This is not my views on marriage or parenting or anything whatsoever, but I thought the most interesting piece is that, assuming Fitchner is the gold and the provider and the one who can do all this, I thought it was interesting that Sevro was with Fitchner and not at home with mom, being a less than 2-year-old when this happened.
So we know what kind of father and husband Chris is. That's actually
I bring my children nowhere. I don't let them leave the house.
Actually, an excellent point. One that I did not pick up on, but you're right. Like that would be weird. However, having read The Sons of Ares, they designed Sevro so that he is a gold. He presents as a gold. So him being
gold
with his son would make sense. When I first read this, I was like bereft, because this to me, again, having read, I don't even know how many books about the concentration camps and Auschwitz and the way that fascist systems tend to make people just disappear as if they never existed. It struck home as actually, Chuck, more realistic than a scene where there's a punishment killing of a young girl in a crowd and her husband goes up and pulls the legs. That to me is wonderful, but it, in terms of the melodrama and the drama of it all, but it's very unrealistic because in my mind, it would be very hard to keep that crowd from not going insane. Whereas
rising up.
this we've seen in our current world. We have actual stories of people not just being assigned a number to dehumanize them and make them not even know what their own identity is anymore, which there are very few, but there are some people alive today who still have tattoos showing that. But the idea that he went out to get a coffee, and then came back home and the apartment is empty, and he has no explanation for why. She's gone. And then all he finds out about her is that a number was assigned a destiny, and that's it. And there's no burial. There's nothing he can mourn. He can't go anywhere. That to me is truly horrific. That is, again, maybe because there are so many people who have that exact story, whether it's in South America and Asia and in communist countries and fascist countries. And in today, there are, again, not to get on my soapbox, but there are people in our country right now, whether you care about what position they have in terms of their legality, they woke up and went to work and came home and a member of their family was gone. And they don't have a reason why. They don't know where they are, and they don't know how to figure that out. I think that's horrific. My problem and kind of the drama and the horror of it is built into the idea that it's so simple. It's not an action sequence or something. That's what I think why it affected me so much. On reading, and spoiler, if you read the Sons of Ares comic book, it turns it into this whole heist scene where they show up, they take Bryn and baby Sevro back to the Board of Quality Control. The guy in charge is Fitchner's friend from the Institute, who becomes his lifelong enemy, and Fitchner and a group of guys break into the Board of Quality Control, and Bryn steals the razor off of the guy, and she escapes, and he almost gets to her, and in the last moment, she throws baby Sevro off of like a catwalk to save the baby instead of herself, and it just turns it into this thrilling and action-packed sequence, but it doesn't have the same weight as I got home and my wife was gone and I didn't know what happened and had no idea. I just feel like it cheapens the impact of what we're reading here in Golden Sun when you layer in all this other stuff.
Well, knowing that history of it, like you explained it in the backstory and the real life comparison, like I get the weight, I can sense the weight of that. I did not read that at all at first, and having not read the comic book yet, I probably would have been more interested in that version, that story of tossing Severo off. But
as you were saying
I feel
I was
the
like,
weight
oh
of
shit,
it.
Chuck should read the comic book because that probably works better for you. I just you can read accounts of people in towns in France or Holland or even Germany itself, and they're talking about how like they went to the butcher shop and the butcher was gone, and then they went to the haircut or the barber shop and two of the barbers are gone. Nobody ever sees them again. Nobody knows what happened to them.
There just might be some blood on the ground or something.
No, not even. That's it's just they're gone. As if they disappeared off the face of the earth. And not only that, but they never existed because their records go with them because they don't have their name. It's not like you can look at a piece of paper and say, oh, Phil went here, here, and here, and then died here. It's Phil went here, and then a number. And then that number, if you can track that down to its final destination, that's where it ended.
Disposed.
So I don't know. That's my, my take on it is I like this version much more than the comic version.
Have you, Chris, have you read the comics? Because I have to order them up, but I've never read them.
No, I mean, Cohen's making me not want to based on all the
Yeah.
holes he's got here. But
I
It's
honestly,
there more and more.
I'm not trying to shit on the comic. I think it's great. I think it's very fun. I
Mhm.
don't think it serves the novels. I don't think it
Yeah.
services the story of, our main interest in the story. I
Well, I
will say
love
that some of the artwork is phenomenal. It's like
yeah,
very cool looking artwork. That doesn't
intense.
look great, but yeah, it's intense artwork. And it's also not written by Pierce. Like the story is written by him, but the actual
Mhm.
dialogue and
right.
the comic book itself is not written by him. And there are moments where you can tell characters
And
say some
Yeah.
dumb shit.
that's the difference. Whereas the Book of Lorne, it's like all prose Pierce. The comics is Pierce, and then it's just the artwork. So it's like they have more control, more creative behind it. So they
It's a
kind of
totally different animal.
yeah.
Totally different animal.
I'd be curious, and you'd probably know Colin. Has he commented on if this is purely canon, or it almost feels like it might be his own fan fiction, after the
Mhm.
fact, not to cheapen it or anything like that. But I would be more interested if it's like, hey, this is how this story could
Mm.
have possibly unfolded versus like this is how it actually unfolded, right? Just for me reading, yeah,
Yeah. I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen an interview
yeah,
with that specific, but I kind of wonder if that's the case.
Mm.
Kind
yeah,
of like Star Wars has some of those where they've come out and
right.
said like this is not actually part of the main or canon or whatever, but it's still part of the universe. So I don't know. It just that was my vibe off of
The
that.
Yeah.
take, yeah.
And it furthers it here where Fitchner goes on and he says, it wasn't like your wife, Darrow. I didn't watch mine die. I didn't see golds come into my world and ruin it. Instead, I felt the coldness of the system swallow the only thing I live for. A copper pressing buttons, filling out a spreadsheet. A brown twisting a knob to release gas. They killed my wife, but they won't ever think so. She's not a memory in their mind. She's a statistic. It's as if she never existed. Some ghost I loved, but no one else ever saw. That's what society does. Spread the blame so there is no villain. So it's futile to even begin to find a villain, to find justice. It's just machinery, processes, and it rumbles on inexorable till a whole generation rises that will throw themselves on the gears. This is exactly, he is right here. And I would love to ask him if we ever have him on again, what what sources he's referencing,
Yeah.
because this is exactly so many accounts of the Holocaust in Nazi Germany, where the Wannsee conference, where you have what amounts to a bunch of nerds and incels sitting around a conference table at a chalet lodge, a beautiful old chateau, and they're having
Mm.
tea and they're eating cucumber sandwiches and they're talking about the logistics of the genocide of the Jews in the Holocaust. And there's a line, I don't know where it comes from, but it's the banality of evil. And the banality of evil is just how it's if they were talking about making leather shoes or filing cabinets, that's what they've reduced the extermination of a group of people down to,
Mm.
is just, well, how many can we feed at one time?
Yeah.
How much do we actually have to feed them? How many calories do we have to give them to just exist for
Yeah.
the period of time that we need to move them from one place to another? And once we get there, what's the square footage of the murder
What they
room?
need.
Like, how much space how many bodies can we fit into one furnace? How many people can we fit onto one cattle train? That's and also what it does, and again, he's explaining it here, it spreads out that blame. One of the best things that Dwight Eisenhower ever did was almost immediately after Normandy and the first, well, not immediately after Normandy, but months after Normandy, and Dachau is found and opened up. Eisenhower says, film everything, take pictures of everything, film everything, because in the future, people will not believe what happened here, and we need to have proof. And we're living in a world today where there are people
it's
who will tell
happening.
you that it's faked, that the videos are fake, that the photos are fake. But Eisenhower, we have the quote, we know for a fact he said, film everything. It was an order. What the Nazis attempted to do was to level that blame out on everybody and just say, well, I didn't actually do that. I didn't know that that's what they were using the cattle cars for. I was just the guy who procured the cattle cars. And well, I was just a train operator. I didn't actually know what they were doing. And so this idea that, and it makes that Bryn death where it's just she disappeared so much more impactful because it highlights why the society is evil. Fitchner had to have a moment where he realized what the society actually was. And the mechanism that allowed him to realize that was not the elaborate death of Io. It was the cold, callous, banal way in which the society evaporated his wife. He says it to the point where he felt like she was a ghost that he was the only one who ever saw.
And
That's
he had
horrifying.
to convey that. He had to convey, well, actually through Dancer conveyed that to Darrow because Darrow only hated Nero, right?
Yeah.
He's like, I want to kill Nero just at the tippity top where now this is Fitchner realizing it's not just one person, to your point. It's the whole system. It's all the colors. They're all involved. And I'm really glad you brought it up because I totally see the whole passage differently now. You know,
Well,
the weight to it.
To what you just, I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was going to say, well, it ties back to the pain we're talking about all three of these characters feeling through their experiences. And now it's very much Fitchner's is, Darrow's probably the least painful experience of the three of them, right? Because Fitchner could have gotten an argument when he left or always said, I love you, and didn't say it that time he left. Then you're just left with literally nothing, less than nothing, you know?
I mean, what not scares me in the real, like, true scare, but there's always a fear that if you don't say I love you to your wife, you never know. I mean, you go to get milk and you might not come back, and that is always going to be there. Can you imagine? You go, you leave, you're annoyed with her or whatever, you leave, you come back and she's gone. And there's never an explanation. You don't have a final moment. You don't have a final anything. And to what, Chuck, you were just saying about all the colors of the problem, you can extrapolate as far as you want. Like part of the way in which the Golds maintain their power on society is the Reds mining helium. So the Reds are guilty because they're the ones mining the helium. Now, obviously, they don't have agency. They don't really have a choice. They have to do it to live. But you could say to them, if they get too uppity, like, well, it's your helium that's causing all this.
Yeah.
You've made them guilty. And so it's insidious. It's so insidious. And it's got roots like a horrible tree. Then we go to a moment here that I think is telling, because Fitchner, even though we're talking about this, is incapable of escaping the notion that, and we see this fairly regularly, and again we'll see it in the next series with the Vox Populi and the Reds and all that. But he's still racist. He says, or colorist. He says, but Dancer didn't. Don't blame him for that. I thought you'd be brothers in the Institute. He's talking about Titus because Darrow brings that up. He says, I thought you'd have, or he says, a natural affection for your own race. So even Ares is still seeing it in this weird, like, well, you're both Reds. So even though we've carved you into Golds, you'll know each other somehow.
You have the handshake, you'll figure it out.
Which smacks to me of that idea. Well, they all know each other,
Right.
If for a long time, that's a joke where, where just somebody who's different from you just assume, well, you must know the other person that looks like you, right? So I'll talk to you about that person. It's a strange peek behind the curtain of, it's even infected Ares. He can't really break himself of that idea. We get a quote here that becomes important. This is foreshadowing. In a storm, you don't tie two boats together. That's something to hold on to.
Yeah.
If you haven't read Morning Star, keep that in mind. And hopefully you fast forwarded through my spoilers. And then we get something that we often have talked about in terms of, who could lead this rebellion? You know, we've talked about like Kavix or Lorne or whatever. And Fitchner shed some light on his reasoning and rationale behind why he was the man to do it. I always knew a gold couldn't lead this rebellion. It has to be from the bottom up, boyo. Red is about family. More than any other color, it is about love amid all the horror of our world. If red rises, they have a chance to bind the worlds together. Mid-colors won't. Pinks and browns can't. Obsidians have failed before. And if they succeeded alone, they'd break the worlds instead of freeing them. Another bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But I thought that was an important bit of finally getting an idea of why Ares chose Darrow and a red, because that really hasn't truly been explained up until this point.
And you know he's in it for the long game. He's not just, all right, I want to upheave this. I want this to be successful. How? And it's like the ones from the bottom have to rise to the top and they have to change it from the inside out. It just can't be him, blowing everything up from his gold perspective. He's in it to really take the whole thing down.
If I'm Darrow, I'm also curious, like, how many more of me were there? Which might not bubble up in that moment, but an interesting question
Yeah.
left unasked. Like, oh, you're talking about, like, just the two of us? There's no way you haven't done this song and dance 15, 20 times already, and I'm the first to break through.
I think, and I think that actually is referenced in Red Rising. When he's carved and he's working out with Harmony,
right.
At one point she's like, well,
Yeah.
maybe you'll work out this time, or maybe it'll work this time. But I agree with you. I think that this would be an interesting time to shed light, maybe.
Yeah.
How many times did you do this before it worked? How many reds have, and did you try other colors? Did you start
Bryn
with
died
a gray
when
and
Sevro was 2, right? So now they're 21, 22 years old, supposedly. So you can't just be Titus and Darrow.
Well, and you assume that there's probably like a 5 to 10 year period of working up to the point where you have the money and infrastructure to try this. But, I don't know. Does that mean that there's been 10 years of various colors being carved?
Abortions. Yeah. Frankensteins.
Just to be clear, Charles is not equating Frankenstein to abortions. He was just looking for the right term to describe the failed attempt at carving a red into a gold. Just anybody out there who's about to be like, I can't believe he did that.
That's what. Yep, that's what I said.
Fitchner continues, and this is just a moment where I think we get an idea of the grand strategy going on, but also a little bit of a window into maybe Fitchner isn't seeing the full board. Dispose of the jackal or make him part of the plan, it doesn't matter. Augustus will adopt you as his heir, and he will use you as a praetor in his armada. And if you defeat the sovereign, he won't settle for being king of Mars. He'll want to be sovereign himself. Help him be. And a year into his reign, Sevro will kill him and pin it on a rival, maybe the jackal. So I think where it's maybe the Martin play here, where we're showing a little bit, and then we'll eventually have a full conversation about this. But this is just keep this bubbling in the back of your brain as we move forward, that this is where things are headed.
It's very much from Fitchner's perspective, like, you've seen what this fucking guy is up to. Like, you think he's gonna sit around and wait for this to come to fruition? Like, come on, for master planner here, you're making a lot of assumptions.
Yeah, and not only with the Darrow side of things, but the Jackal side. Like,
Yeah.
nothing about the Jackal tells you that he's just going to quietly sit
Yeah.
on the sideline. Fitchner goes on talking about the Nero afterplay. After he dies, all will look to the strongest. Be the strongest. Win the game of succession, and you can be sovereign just as you are Primus, or were Primus, just as you are Praetor. It's all games, except this time we're helping you cheat. I think this is a reference to Alexander the Great. We just talked about it with Janelle, but when Alexander died, supposedly his final words were when somebody said to him, well, who does the empire go to? He said, the strongest. And in some texts, particularly more modern, a couple hundred years after his death, the fight between Alexander's generals, which were known as the Diadochi, the successors, they were the multi-decade, I want to say almost 100 years of wars between these groups were called the funeral games. And not only so is he referencing the strongest, but then he says it's all games. I'm seeing Alexander in there. Maybe I'm losing the forest for the trees. Darrow goes on to say, Fitchner says, why? What's left for you there? Because Darrow says, I want to go to Lycos. He says, my family, it's been 4 years. I need to see them before this begins. So we're just kind of tweaking Fitchner a little bit, but then he acts like this is a big shock, but he just said Reds are all about family and love. So this should be kind of almost like you should plan to have a video from his mom or something that you can show him to be like, this is all good. Then we get Darrow kind of gives him the smackdown about how everything that we're just talking about, how, planning for the future is a fool's game. And he says, we're just mortals opening Pandora's box.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what Pandora's box is, but are you familiar with the myth of Pandora?
No.
Okay.
Go for it.
Yeah.
So Pandora, Prometheus steals the fire from the gods and gives it to man against Zeus's wishes. Mankind at this point are like clay automatons that Prometheus and Zeus have pulled out of the muck of a river and made to just add an extra thing for the gods to watch lope around the world.
Entertainment.
Prometheus steals the fire, gives it to them. That is essentially him giving them the power to become man. Prometheus gets punished, and Epimetheus, I believe, is his brother. Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Maybe it's not that. But Zeus wants to punish him, and so he sends him this woman, Pandora, and she has with her what we call Pandora's box is actually a pithos, which is a jar or like a Greek circular object with a lid, vase, yeah. And so Pandora goes to Epimetheus, and she's given one order: no matter what, do not open this. Direct from Zeus, the king of the gods. He tells her, don't open this. And because mankind has endless curiosity and interest and acts against its own best judgment at all times, she opens the jar. And out of the jar comes death, disease, plague, strife, war, everything that is bad in the world comes out of that jar. And then she closes it, but she closes it just in time and keeps hope in the jar. And that's the only thing that stays in and trapped for humans to actually go back to at all times. So there's a double meaning. Whenever we talk about Pandora's box, we should keep in mind that there's hope in the box. The other thing that I think is interesting about that story, I had the stories of, I'm looking at it right here. My laptop's on it. Charles Warner's 1978 rewriting. It's called the Stories of the Greeks, and it's just this fantastic retelling of Greek mythology. And I reread Pandora's Box after reading this chapter and it was only, I think it was 9 pages or whatever, but it's what I found really fascinating is it's definitely has to be the roots of the Adam and Eve and the apple in the Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
It just
That was the
everything about
connection,
it.
yeah.
The more you read the myth, the more you're like, wow, the early Christians were really good about taking mythology from other religions.
Oh, we're gonna
and just
borrow this.
slightly tweaking it,
Yeah.
but not even really that much, you know. So that's Pandora's Box. And then we get to the moment of truth here, which I mentioned in my recap about how the one thing that Fitchner really doesn't contend with is Darrow's heart. Fitchner's basically like, no, because Darrow's going to Lycos. He's like, I want to take her with me. He says, who? Sevro murmurs Mustang. Fitchner says, no, absolutely not. No, it's not worth the risk. You're set up now. She's in love with you. Don't lose that leverage because of a guilty conscience, which I think tells you how deep into Fitchner is. His whole reason for doing this is love, but he just can't. He's so jaded and twisted and burnt out by this that he can't see it anymore. I don't know. Is that being unfair to Fitchner, or
it could be jealousy or subconscious jealousy too, right? Like he says, "Oh, you're actually in love with." Like he kind of scoffs at the fact that Darrow wasn't playing her like a fiddle, and he actually feels this way. So it definitely could be also, damn, this guy found it again after a similar loss, and I have just been toiling away without that.
I like
That's
that.
a good point.
I like that because there's nothing in Fitchner's character that makes him like a poor paragon of morality or ethical upstandingness. Like the idea that he's also still a selfish and potentially self-centered person is legit. So
I just figured he didn't want the house of cards to go crumbling. Like he's just saw this as, you know, the way to upend it all while you're this much closer.
And to back that up, if he's doing this for the love of Bryn and he sees something that might get in the way of this succeeding and jeopardizing his love for Bryn or the successful outcome of the deeds of his love, then that totally makes sense. And I think it's furthered here, Chuck, by he says, Darrow says, and what if I love her too? Fitchner says, shit. You're serious. I thought this was part of your gory damn game. Shit, boyo, you'll ruin everything. Gory damn it, idiot. Shit. Darrow kind of closes us out with an impassioned speech here. This is everything. She loves me. I won't use her anymore. I won't leverage her. If I can't trust her, gold can't change, and Titus and Harmony were right. Hell, the society is right. You and I know that it's not about our color, it's about our hearts. Now let's put that to the test. Which essentially sums up the entire series in many ways. But I really love that. Then, and Titus and Harmony were right. Because there is a world in which they are right. As much as we hate to say it, that their notion of how this works, which is just to kill all the golds. I mean, there is a world in which that is the correct path. It might save the rebellion a lot of pain and strife if that's how they operated from the jump. Is that too harsh?
I don't think so at all, no. And, you know, typically how a lot of stuff ends is because each side decimated each other, and then they kind of realize they need to find a middle ground, not they've been convinced morally across millions and millions and millions of people that it needs to change, right? That's a much harder lift than kind of reaching a point of a conflict and being like, maybe we just stop killing all each other and sort this out a little bit. So
Sadly, that's very, very true.
Mm.
The second Sevro second of this chapter comes at the very end where Fitchner says, and if you're wrong, if she rejects you for them, Darrow, inner monologue, I don't have an answer. Sevro hops down from his perch. Then I put a bullet in her head.
Mm-hmm.
Classic
That's my boy.
Sevro. Can't beat it. Sevro
Nope.
being Sevro.
Putting
at
a
all
point on
times.
love.
So that is my coverage of chapter 46, Brotherhood. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add at the tail end here? I think we covered quite a bit.
I just had 2 points that I found interesting is when Fitchner explains the story of what happened to his wife. The first response Darrow asked, he just said, "What was her name?"
Mm.
And
Oh, I love
he,
that. Yeah, go on.
yeah, and he's like, "Why?" And his line, I don't have it in front of me right now, but he's like, "Because I want to remember her."
Yeah,
And it's like that. That's somebody who's listening to your story, listening to your life experience, and is taking it in and being respectful instead of, yeah, the loss sucks. I lost my wife too. I pulled her ankles down. No, he's just like, what is her name? I want to remember her. So there's some weight behind that. And then when they're talking about how he's gone through this far, and he's like, from here on out, we need to be in constant communication. We need for this to work. I can't be alone anymore.
Yep.
And however the sentence went, and they're like, no, you did fine. Like you didn't break. You held true. And Darrow says, I did break. I just had friends to piece me back together.
Mm.
So those are two awesome lines in the chapter.
Those are excellent points. I think the friends piecing him back together is such an undercurrent and a theme throughout the entire series that it's highlighted there, and Darrow's actually saying it, which is fantastic.
He similar to that, he gives Dancer a bit of a slap on the wrist early too, along those lines. Dancer's apologizing and he's like, I understand we're blood and brothers, and then Darrow literally says, please don't let it happen again. So basically little helldiver hands slap on the wrist there to
you be careful. Be careful.
Which would be very painful.
Yeah.
And to Chuck to actually just nail that down. Darrow says, what was her name? Her name? Why does it matter?
Yeah.
Fitchner asks warily. Because I want to remember her. Bryn, Sevro says from above. My mother's name was Bryn. She was 22 when they killed her, only a year older than I am now. Bryn, I repeat the word, and see Fitchner rock slightly on his feet, a shortness of breath. So it just highlights the depth and pain. I think that even now, 19 years later, he can't really even say her name.
No.
He can't really talk about it.
I was going to bring that up. Like, so if you ever told a story, something that hurts you or reminds you of something, and you can tell the story over and over again, but it's that one word or one name or one instance where if you accidentally say it, that's all of a sudden where you're like, oh shit, like that's when you're everything crumbles. And I'm glad you read the whole quote right there, because that's the moment where Ares has probably told this story a few times, and it's just like no one's ever asked what her name was. And then now it's like, well, what does it matter? And then now that the name has been said out loud, and then now this is emotion from Fitchner, and now he's wrecked. He probably would turn around at this point. He's probably got a tear coming down his cheek,
Totally.
the real emotion.
Anytime if I have to talk about, it's been, I don't know, it's been 21 years since my dad passed away.
Yeah.
I literally can't, I have a hard time talking about him. I just cannot get it out of my system anytime. And I've told, I've talked about it hundreds of times at this point, just can't get it out of my system. Anytime it comes up, it like it says in there, shortness of breath, kind of wary. which to me heightens, and maybe Darrow talking about Io kind of endlessly, having her thrown in his face all the time. Maybe that's his way of working through it in a weird way. I have no idea, but it's an excellent call out on both ends there. All right, let's wrap this up before I start weeping. Just joking.
Yes,
just
sir.
joking. I go to therapy, so I'm fine. Current books, I just, like I said, finished the omnibus Sons of Aerie, and it is very much worth checking out. Not sure it informs or supports much of my interpretation of the novels, but it's totally good in terms of getting a lot of great backstory on certain aspects of the society. It has some fantastic art, and in particular, the most striking bit to me, or I think not the most striking, but one of the more formative bits is right at the beginning. You have this excellent bit that Chuck and I have referenced a number of times about the various sizes of the different colors. That's almost a reason to have it just on its own
for that,
so that you can reference that when you're reading. There's also some great.
You put the blue whale behind them all, and then I'm in.
Yeah,
like
and the Eiffel Tower, and then Mount Everest.
I was gonna say they need to do the same thing for like the ships too. The Archimedes, like they need to have some sort of scale for that, just to understand the size.
Absolutely would be helpful. One of the interesting aspects of the omnibus is, so you have the first two books that came out, and the artwork is very interesting, but it's almost like kind of unfinished, or it's just raw. It's very raw,
like sketch, or
kind of sketched more than anything. And then you have the third book, the final book in the 3-part series, and it's this very classical, very comic book classic artwork, which is, I like the third one the best. I thought it was very good. And you see Nero and Cavix, and you meet a lot of the characters that we meet in the other series. On the Holocan, watching the reunion of Summer House, chaos.
Chaos. My wife has been telling me about that, and
unbelievable. Have you dabbled,
no,
Chris?
No, we're on the Rory train, Real Housewives of Rhode Island. Which is great, because I spent a decent amount of time living there, so just seeing places like Cranston just glamorized, and you're like, this is fantastic. Cranston sucks. They're making it look. Actually, so sidebar. One of my friends is really successful in the cannabis space in Rhode Island, and we were watching, and one of the husbands is like, "Oh, I do this, own a cannabis company." I'm like, I wonder if my buddy Tim's going to be in this. And sure enough, first episode, he's in the background to like 5 scenes. It was awesome.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
I love that. That's hilarious. Yeah. I wondered, will there be an episode where they get high and then go to Wright's Chicken Farm?
That would be
that's perfect. New England.
That would be real Housewives of Rhode Island.
That's a deep cut New England.
Would there be a brawl in the parking lot?
Yeah, exactly. Summer House Reunion. If you're looking for a show where
pure drama,
chaos. There's a guy who basically, there's a woman who's in love with a guy.
Yep.
And the guy cheated on her, and then for 2 years they weren't together and not friends. And then they became friends over the last summer. And then she and he kind of hooked up a little bit, but then he drifted away, and then he started banging her best friend,
who's also his best friend's.
Yeah, so there's all this intertangling. But in the reunion, the couple, the girl, the former best friend, now hook up with this guy, are sitting on this couch, and they're taking the girl, this Amanda Batula, which is a fun name to say. She is getting unloaded on by everybody in the cast. And this guy is the biggest drip, the biggest coward, this West, whatever the fuck, sits there with a thumb up his ass, like an absolute piece of shit. and doesn't say a fucking thing.
Really?
And is just this fucking coward.
I know he had like nudes that got released like just an hour before the shoot, which that's what Jen was telling me.
It was very funny and very stupid. And I just watching this guy, I was like, my God, what a fucking coward. But that's what's on the holocan. The alternate chapter titles for chapter 46 Brotherhood.
I'm glad you remembered.
We have two. One provided by Words and Whiskey Pod is Big Sigh. Big Sigh.
Big Sigh.
Which I'm thinking either they're way smarter than I am, or I don't quite.
I'm trying to piece it.
Did they not like this chapter?
Yeah. They just like, finally they can relax because he's not on guard. He's not.
Maybe. That's probably it. That's probably
I think that's what's going.
That's probably it. I'm picturing them being like,
get it over with. Yeah.
And then Hold in 5872, The Ties That Bind, which I like because that's a great shout out to Bruce Springsteen, the greatest who ever did it. So I'm going to say that The Ties That Bind wins.
I believe that's a historical novel as well about a girl growing up in China because they like bind their feet together to.
No, I believe they don't bind their feet together. They break their feet and then they bind them so they crow underneath them.
I am
okay. So you still said they bind them.
No, he said they bind them together. They don't bind them together. They bind them separately so they still walk.
Yeah.
I'm looking this up now.
Yeah, now you're pissing him off. He's bringing in his historical
I don't know.
reference.
Maybe it very well might be a historical novel about the Chinese foot binding, which, by the way...
The Ties That Bind is what the title reference...
It is, yeah. I'll have to... I'm pretty sure I'm on the right. I am right that this is a book, and I was right about the subject matter, but that's probably not. It was like an assigned reading in school. That's kind of why it.
Okay.
The Ties That Bind.
Yeah,
I see this now.
Is it an assigned reading? Are you thinking of The Good Earth?
No. I'll have to do some digging. I'll round back. Don't quote me on anything here. If you've made it an hour and 42 minutes into this episode, anyways,
we're all going to get quoted.
I mean, I'm intrigued, but anyhow,
it's a sorcerer.
I have no
series.
idea. I don't know. Chris is probably right. He's already checking himself, and he's right about one thing for sure. Which we are an hour and 42 minutes into this one chapter, which is mostly on me. I apologize, but it's a very important chapter. There's a lot of meat on the bone. And some of these quotes I didn't want to leave out just because they're good. They're really important to the character. And Chris, we're just vamping here while Chris actually fact checks.
Yeah, he's doing his research. But
which, by the way, Chris, did you get a haircut and a beard cut? You look very, very clean cut today.
My beard's grown in a bit.
Oh, it's snazzy.
Doing the old, we're going to the beach soon. I'm getting more workouts, getting fit. Yeah. So you grow the beard while you're doing that. So then once you've lost a little bit of weight and you also shave the beard, it's like
it looks
double the impact.
Wow, drastic. I've never tried that. I've never tried
it's a good strategy. It's free.
I will.
Free advice.
Then we remember
some good stuff if you've made it this far.
Cullen has no chin.
A nickel's
under
worth
that.
of free advice. Hey, I do have a chin. I've got a butt chin. It's just I've got 4 more.
I haven't
underneath
seen that
it.
thing in like 25 years.
Someday soon, maybe when we go camping. All right.
No,
that's all I've got.
You're gonna shave it?
I don't know. Maybe we'll see.
I found my book, Ties That Bind, Ties That Break. And it's about the practice of Chinese foot binding.
But they don't bind them together. I want to be clear on that because that is an image that is insane. Because a 9-year-old Chinese girl hopping around with bound feet together is insane.
I thought they were always like
them
carried
individually so that they walked on specific little shoes, each foot curled underneath it.
Oh boy, yeah, those are. Yikes!
Did they bind them together? Am I totally off on this?
I'm just looking at the aftermath. Aftermath of going through the process, but I think they're bound individually.
because if you look at the shoes that they had to wear,
Yeah.
they are wild. They are like, they have like a wooden peg underneath that they actually walked on. I think. I don't remember. Anyhow.
Wow. Any woman who did not get their feet bounded were seen as non-marriageable.
Yeah. It was a class. It was like a class.
That's what the book is about. Yeah. So she refuses and ruins her family because the marriage is agreement is broken or whatever. So.
All right. So now just so we can, your big toe is bound flat to the sole of the foot. The arch of the foot is also strained. Finally, silk stripes are wrapped around the foot and changed every 2 days to prevent blood and pus from infecting the foot. Yeah, that sounds intense.
I mean, it just goes to show you that we've been doing weird things for beauty in class for a long time.
Yeah. So this is not what they were referencing when they said ties that bind for the chapter title. But
we'll never know.
I have a strong feeling it is this ancient Chinese method of beautification and not the Bruce Springsteen song.
Oh, no. I wouldn't have looked that up. It wasn't for Chris, so I have to say thank you. Learned something else new today.
Chuck, I know for a fact that you had to read The Good Earth. I was in
Colin, they told me to read shit, I never read it. I never read any of it. It wasn't until I decided on my own to pick a book up.
Okay, well, fair point.
Yep.
Thank you, Chris, for teaching Chuck about
anytime. Yeah. Thank you to that TikTok follower who got us down that path.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so next up we have chapter 47, Free. And then we are going to be recording that next week. We will also be talking to Indie Artbox.
Oh, yes.
He's done some great work. There's a fantastic portrait of Sevro. She's joining us for chapter 49. So next week, we'll probably do another situation like today where chapter 47 is very short. It's 2.5 pages.
Yeah.
Chapter 48 has some more meat. And then she's going to join us to talk about chapter 49, Why We Sing.
Yeah.
And then after that, we'll have the Deep and then the Triumph. So we are, gentlemen, a few short chapters away from the end of Golden Sun. And with that, we will let you go. Enjoy this 2-hour-long ramble through one 5.5-page chapter. I'm Cullen. You can find us on I'm Cullen. With me is Chris and Chuck. I don't know why I said my name. You can find us on Instagram.
It's very, very Pax of you. Just
Cullen out book. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Sons of Aries Pod. You can find us on the website at
sonsofariespod.com.
Perfect. And if you are interested, we have a newsletter coming out, which kind of encapsulates the month, our takes on some of our favorite episodes, what were the highlights of the month for us, what are we reading, what are we watching, the creator of the kind of creator corner of the month. We'll have fan fiction up there. We have a few things up there right now on the website, but then the newsletter will bring it directly to you. So you can go to the website and enter your email for that. No cost, no fee, obviously. And that's all we have. Valete.
For the Rising.
Break those chains.